will now move on to our 6.7 CivicSpark Fellow Presentation, the Clear Lake Shoreline Inventory Project and Shoreline Stewardship Project Development for the Lake County Water Resources Department. With that, we have Marina Delagiani, Deputy Water Resources Director, and staff that would be presenting on this.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much, Board of Supervisors, for having us today. Marina Delagianis, Deputy Water Resources Director for the Lake County Water Resources Department. I'm excited to be joined by Emma Bellinger, our AmeriCorps CivicSpark presentation, who will be showcasing her work that she has been working on. She's been serving with the Lake County Water Resources Department for the past 11 months. She'll, of course, give a refresher of the CivicSpark program that has been very beneficial to our community, and again, the work that she has been doing with our department. So I'm going to go ahead and play IT for a second. I'm going to plug in her presentation, and then Emma does have hard copies of today's presentation. She's more than happy to pass out to the Board of Supervisors and available for anyone in the chamber. So go ahead.
You can come join us up here.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a little shadow, and Emma's going to sit up here and chat.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and plug this in. Emma, if you would like to pass it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet, awesome. Thank you, Deputy Director Delagianis, for that introduction, and thank you to the board for allowing me to be here today to present to you all.
1 second.
Oh, so close.
Yes.
Yay. Does that work now? Are we?
Yep, it's showing up on my Zoom.
Awesome. Okay.
Sweet. Amazing. So I'm Emma Bellinger. I am the CivicSpark Fellow that has been serving with the Lake County Water Resources Department for the past 11 months. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about the Shoreline Inventory Project and the Shoreline Stewardship Program that is in development now. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, or for those of you who are not familiar with CivicSpark, there has been a long history of CivicSpark Fellows in this community doing great work. It is an AmeriCorps program that pairs fellows with local governments or nonprofits to help bolster their ability to address environmental or social equity challenges in the communities. There are fellows all across the great state of California working on issues in climate resiliency, transportation, affordable housing, and all other great projects. Of course, with the Lake County Water Resources Department, I've been focused mostly on water resource management. And I started this past September in 2021, and I'll be finishing up in just a couple weeks here in August. So this serves as just a little update on those projects that I've been working on through those 11 months of service. Next slide. You got it. Thank you. While the department has a lot of great programs that are already very developed, doing great work in water quality monitoring, aquatic invasive species, and others, shoreline management is an area that they were interested in pursuing to have a more holistic lake management program. So while shorelines might not be the very first thing that you think of when you think of lake management, what's happening on the shoreline does greatly affect the lake as a whole and its ecological health. So when there are natural shorelines with lots of vegetation, there's a lot of great things that are also happening. One of those is vegetation provides a natural buffer system for the lake. When runoff is coming from the land, it might be tracking toxins or other pollutants that can go through the plants before it enters the water, and therefore helping increase the water quality. Also, of course, with native plants, there's more habitat available for fish and wildlife. In this county, of course, we care a lot about a healthy fishery in Clear Lake. And we also get increased aesthetics. We have more great views that this county is known for, and hopefully with the implementation of these projects, We can also provide some economic opportunities for the local communities, including partnering with local contractors in implementing natural shoreline projects around the lake, and also possibly providing economic resources for those interested community members in helping out provide a great natural shoreline for Clear Lake. Next slide, please. So the very first step of shoreline management is better understanding what exactly is happening on the shoreline. So the first step was implementing a process called Score the Shore. Some of you may remember a presentation similar to this by last year's CivicSpark Fellows, Liam Healy and Nicole D'Amato, who were responsible for really developing the Score the Shore process behind the scenes and providing the tools and resources that I would need to implement the project further. So this process delineates the entire shoreline of Clear Lake into easy 1,000-foot sections, which can be analyzed using a preset survey, asking questions about vegetation, structures, woody debris, and erosion, all things that make up a great healthy shoreline, and providing an overall score to give us an idea of the ecological health of those transects and regions. So as you can see on the map, there's 17 different regions all around the lake to help us navigate our project and also to help make decisions later on. There was 353 total transects. It was a little bit of a hefty task. So Liam and Nicole in the department were able to complete 25% of that in the year between 2020 and when I started. So I was responsible for the remaining transects. And if you would like to go to the next slide. I wanted to showcase the map of the overall scores of the complete entire inventory. So walking through the legend, you'll see a lot of green areas, which all correspond to high scores, meaning there's resiliency to erosion, there's a lot of habitat, there's not too many bad things happening there, and there's a lot of green areas, which is great. The average score is pretty high, around 66. But I also want to point out areas with red, orange, and yellow transects, which correlate to lower scores, and highlight areas where we can improve our management practices and maybe get some more natural shorelines in those regions. Next slide, please. And while I would love to go through all of the data with you, it is a pretty hefty data set. So I wanted to break it down and give an example of one way that we can look at this data and analyze it. So I wanted to highlight a different metric called developmental density that is completely separate from the average score. The equation is highlighted at the top of this slide here. So it takes the total numbers of houses and the total number of docks in one region and divides that by the number of transects per region to give an average number of structures per 1,000 foot in one region. So this table here goes through all of those different 17 regions, and I wanted to highlight kind of two different ends of the spectrum here. In North Lakeport, there's pretty high development. The developmental density is about 18, and the average score is okay, but not the best at 51. And then comparing that to Clear Lake State Park, that has almost no development, and has a really high score. So I think comparing these two regions, we can see that there's a great diversity of different shorelines around Clear Lake, and we also are by no means saying that we want there to be no development on Clear Lake. That is not our goal. Our only goal is to point out that areas that are developed have some room for improvement and opportunity to grow in their ability to be shoreline stewards. And that leads me to my next point, which is the second project I was working on, the Shoreline Stewardship Program development. So with the department, we were really interested in providing resources to be able to engage the community and encourage natural shorelines and best management practices all around Clear Lake. The work that I did on this was a lot of research into what other shoreline stewardship programs around the country have done well, where their successes were, and to get some inspiration for how we can fit our unique needs of Lake County into a shoreline stewardship program here. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of lofty goals here and a lot of different things that we hope to accomplish. And I do want to iterate that this is just the brief introduction of this program that will be developed for many years later on. We are not quite in the process of implementing it yet. I just wanted to provide a brief introduction of what we hope to do in the future. So we have a big focus on natural shorelines, which include native plants like tules, Tues are a great resource, not only for the habitat they provide and those ecosystem services, but also as a cultural resource. So encouraging more tules around the lake, more planting of native trees and things like that. But also we have a big focus on wanting to enhance the sense of community and encourage everyone to be on the same page and working together to build a more resilient and healthy Clear Lake. And once again, we hope to provide economic incentives for participants, those stakeholders who are interested in pursuing a natural shoreline project on their property or helping out in other ways. Next slide, please. So again, a big part of this is education and outreach, and I wanted to provide some examples of different outreach materials that I have been working on as part of this project as well. So on the left, you can see an example of a poster that you might see in the Shoreline Stewardship Program. We can use it as a reference for lake bed managers, talking through different options with property owners on different things that they can be doing on their lake, on their property and shorelines, thinking about different ways they can incorporate natural shoreline ideas, and also just in general different activities and behaviors that they could be changing or altering slightly just to provide a better ecosystem on their shorelines. And on the right, there's a bit of a different outreach that we've been working on, which is an activities and coloring book aimed towards those younger budding stewards. And I was able to design and draw some coloring pages for those, all talking about the ecosystem of Clear Lake or Highland Springs Reservoir, another great aquatic resource in Lake County. So stay on the lookout for some of these in the near future. Next slide, please. And speaking of next steps, I wanted to highlight again that this program is in its early development stages. In the 2023-2024 service year, a new CivicSpark fellow will be here to continue the development and implementation of this Shoreline Stewardship Program. And between then and now, there will also be a CivicSpark fellow working with the department in aquatic invasive species, outreach and engagement. And of course, there's a lot of overlap in all things lake bed management, so you might hear a bit about shorelines even before 2023. But yeah, in general, just be on the lookout for all of the great resources provided by the department and the CivicSpark fellows that they are working with. And I have, I think, some time for questions now, but I have also provided my email here in case you think of something later. And if it's after I've already left in a couple weeks, also the contact information for the Water Resources Department is available as well.
Supervisor Pyska.
Thank you for this work, and thank you for this year of service. It's incredible. We love our CivicSparks. It sounds like you're leaving, but I hope you had a great stay in Lake County. We love it even more when our Sparks stay. But I'm sure it was an incredible year for you and an incredible place to study. I love the drawing pages. So I would love to see those in the elementary schools. I used to look for curriculum just like that, and to have that localized is a fantastic resource. So I hope we can connect those with the elementary schools. And thank you so much for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, that is the goal, to help get those out to the younger students and our outreach programs and all the different events that we do. We've already been able to provide them at a couple different outreach events, so before I leave, I hope to get a couple more pages in there, have it a little more developed, but yes, that is on the future, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, thank you so much for your year of service. We've benefited so much from our CivicSparks fellows. It's amazing to see them come here, usually a brand new place they've never come to, finding something that you're passionate about, and then making a project happen for us to move us forward and taking care of our environment. So really appreciate the work you've done here and the time you've spent. You mentioned something. I'm just wondering if there's been any further conversations. Economic incentives. I think it will take an economic incentive to get people to make the changes that we need. It's private property now, so it's very difficult to just demand that change unless it's brand new development. Were there any ideas or conversations of what those could look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is something that I and the department have been talking about a lot. And we've taken some inspiration from other programs who do have economic incentives. Specifically for Lake County, we are pursuing the idea of possibly giving some discounts on lake bed fees or something like that. Also trying to figure out if there's grants we can provide to help with the cost of implementation and other ideas. But yeah, we are still very much in the ideas process and are aware that economic incentives would be a great help for the program. So that is, yeah, definitely of interest.
I look forward to furthering that discussion in order to get our community members to want to take part in that. So I appreciate the program being put together. The other part was we were looking at the scores. We were looking at the colors of all the segments and whatnot.
Yes.
Have you ever kind of overlaid that map with the cyanobacteria, the amount of cyanobacteria that we find in the lake from the measures that have been taken? Do they kind of match up that where it's green, we see less cyanobacteria, and where it's red, we see more? Just to kind of use that as another incentive. Hey, you don't want to see what you've seen over the weekend. I don't know if you were looking at the lake this week, but it's not going to get any better as we keep going into the drought, but it was a large amount of algae that was accumulating over the weekend. And so I'm just wondering if you've kind of compared the two and to kind of showcase that, yes, if you have a good lake shore, you can reduce the type of algae buildup that we're seeing.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is not something I've specifically done, but is absolutely something you could do with the data. And I forgot to mention it during the presentation, but the full data set will be available on the Water Resources Department website along with the story map to kind of help explain the process. But yeah, I think thinking about shorelines and cyanobacteria is really useful. Obviously, cyanobacteria is a really nuanced issue that doesn't have one quick silver bullet to help fix it. But maybe shorelines can play a role in that. Having more natural shorelines can improve the water quality, hopefully reducing cyanobacteria. But yeah, I would also be really interested to see if there was like any overlap between the maps. That is definitely something I can do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your stay here, and I'm sure that we will have another CivicSparks fellow. I have a feeling you're not going to let that happen. I have one.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Vice Chair Scott?
Just want to thank you for your service. I agree. I love the coloring pages, putting something in our youth's hands that's local that they can learn from. It brings meaning to them. And I would love to see if we could somehow get into our high schools with this information. So when they're learning in one of their science classes, it's local. We have so much knowledge and research that can be done right here. And just for it to bring meaning to our youth so they understand what they have right here. So just thank you again for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully some sort of youth program can be incorporated in the development of the stewardship program. I think that would be really lovely.
I had a question about the shoreline vegetation. I know that there's been a lot of, in my town halls, I have 3 of them, so there's been a lot of discussion about vegetation in general and whether it's, I don't know if it's invasive or not. Some of it may be, we got primrose, and I'm not sure what some of it is, like near our parks and stuff, but it's also in private properties as well. And so I know a lot of folks are asking what they can do in maintaining this, and they're concerned they might have to get a permit, or so there's a lot of questions about that and what they can do to assist not only in private property but also in regards to the county maintained areas as well, because I have lots of pictures. I went out on a trip with some folks at the Keys where they have primrose everywhere, and so just wanted to look out for some of those type of things that I can give back to them to give them some incentive also to and even answer some of their questions so they can know what to do right first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. Vegetation is tricky because some is invasive and some is native. So I know that the county has been working on a primrose removal project, and in tangent with that, also replacing the primrose areas with replanting of tules, which are a native, the reeds. You can kind of see them in the back of this picture here. They're green, kind of look like cattails, but a little different. And those are great, really useful for Clear Lake. Naturally, Clear Lake probably had mostly tules around the shoreline. So tules are of special interest to us when talking about vegetation on the shoreline. But also as part of the resources that I'll be leaving behind, there will be a native plant list, hopefully highlighting some other native plants that should be encouraged and maybe planted if we can get the infrastructure developed to get property owners plants that they can plant on their properties.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll reach out for more information on the, like, the assistance with folks that really want to help in the county maintained areas and things like that. And also with, you know, with the lake being so shallow right now, they're seeing tires and things like that. So they don't know if they can go and get it, or, you know, there's just a lot of those questions, but I can reach out to Water Resources on that. I just figured it'd kind of like speak to it since it's constantly been talked about. So with that, I'll see if there's any other comments from the public.
Good morning, Scott DeLeon, Public Works Water Resources Director. I just want to take a moment to thank Emma for the wonderful service this year. You all have done that and recognized her, and rightfully so. We have had the benefit of some wonderful CivicSpark Fellows, to include our own Deputy Director, Delajanis, who is a former CivicSpark Fellow. So wonderful work, great continuation of the work that was done before her, and she's really laid the groundwork for our next CivicSpark, and I know we'll be pursuing that. And again, thank you so much for not only the work, but a wonderful addition to our organization. Very pleasant, very wonderful to be around, and certainly very nice to have in the office for the last 11 months. So thank you very much, Emma, and good luck with everything in your future. I know you'll do well.
And we can't get her to stay, right? We tried.
I have tried almost everything, Supervisor Scott.
I have loved my time in Lake County. The only reason I'm leaving, or one of the biggest reasons, is I'm going to grad school next year. So on to the next adventure. But I've had a lovely time. I've learned so much from the department and all of the partners that they work with. And I'm so thankful to be a part of this community for my time here.
So you'll call her when she's finished.
Yeah, we have a timeline, don't worry. But I would also just like to thank Emma for the work that you've done. As Director De Leon said, she definitely helped lay the foundation. As she shared, you know, this is just the start of the great work to be done. So especially with the work that Liam and Nicole started, and, you know, the strengthening of the foundation that Emma did. Thank you so much. I'm always going to highlight her coloring pages because those are a lot of fun, and definitely want to get that education outreach out there. So thank you, Emma. We're going to miss you, but when you're done, getting smarter and better, and even though you're already the smartest and betterest ever, come back to us.
Thank you.
So I'm not seeing any other public input, so I will bring it back to the board. And it looks like Supervisor Simon has his,
Yeah. You know, I just think one of the key, obviously, thank you for all the work that you're doing to lay in, you know, the long-term path here, but it was talked about the education stuff. We talked about that so much, how to get it into the schools, and Jessica and Tina said that. I just think it's so important, because those next generations are the ones that are going to just transform, you know, what we're trying to do here. So, and the other thing, you know, I just want to say, you know, the willows, the cottonwood, and the tules are all part of our, you know, the original stewards of the land. There are tribal uses for all of those, you know, and if we can get back to those efforts, I think, you know, we can continue just to work hard diligently with the new science that's there, but the old traditional ways that to take care of the lake, that took care of us for thousands of years. So I appreciate that, and excited, like I said, the education stuff there with the kids. We've talked about it, the Blue Ribbon Committee, all the other things. How do we get the kids engaged to understand what they have right in their backyard, you know, the science and what we're talking about. So I think it's really neat, and I know you guys will have another CivicSpark coming in that'll hopefully grow on that. So appreciate the work that's done.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we are also really excited to work with tribal partners in this program, and we hope that it's a really collaborative experience with all the stakeholders who care and love Clear Lake as much as we all do. And yeah, definitely, again, getting that into the schools and reaching younger populations, that is definitely something we're all looking forward to.
Any other comments? Supervisor Sabatier?
I have a question for Deputy Director Delagianis. Have you ever done a presentation for our other departments on how it is that you are consistently accessing CivicSparks fellows? Just because I think it's a benefit. I don't want to take away if we're limited from your department, but just I think it's been such a huge asset for us to bring in new, fresh eyes into the county, people who fall in love with the county, sometimes want to stay. But it's just, I think the experience is great for them, but on the other side, we benefit so much. So just kind of curious if that's a possibility, because I would love to see, no offense, taking advantage of the CivicSparks program on a greater scale, if that's possible.
Yeah, and I am more than happy to help facilitate that. I can definitely bring an item to the board specifically of the CivicSpark program, have some folks from CivicWell, formerly known as the Local Government Commission, who are tasked with leading this program. I know I have had plenty of conversation from a lot of different folks around the county, including special districts, clerks. Hidden Valley Lake, as we know, they were the first ones to have CivicSpark fellows. Terra now has CivicSpark fellows this year, and it's definitely growing, and it has been a constant assistance for our department. So I'm more than happy to bring something before the board and help facilitate the resources that CivicWell does in terms of having potential project partners, webinars. They have a lot of resources on the website. If you just Google CivicSpark in itself, the AmeriCorps program website will pop up, but I am more than happy to bring an item to the board in the near future, especially since the new CivicSpark year is ramping up. That's something that folks, especially as they're starting their fiscal planning and whatnot for the next fiscal year, they can start looking into. So I can bring a presentation to the board with CivicWell. I'm always happy to hype up CivicSpark.
I'd be very interested in that.
So now the AmeriCorps has the climate positions, and that's really one that we'd like to add to. So I know it's off topic, I'll just stop there, but that's something that we're looking at with our new position. We need help with that.
Any other comments? Well, thank you again for your presentation. Thank you again for all the work you've done. It's been wonderful having you. And thank you for the presentation once again.
Thank you so much.